Welcome to Jose Views. Today, we're going to talk about America's threats, America's enemies in today's times, circumstances, and critical moment. We have to address these threats, challenges, and and what to do to confront them. So, in this live video, we are going to be able to discuss, debate, and most importantly, find and take a deeper look at Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, and Cuba. They're all connected. So follow me through, and you will see the connections between these nations and what they're trying to do to undermine the U.S. not just interests but our way of life. They're they're openly calling us enemies, but not just that. They have a plan and they're putting it in motion. We're about to show you step by step with facts, with sustainable, reliable sources. So you see the connections, and most importantly, so we start addressing the issue as a society, something that every American should be at this moment taking a closer look at, and most importantly, finding ways to address. Follow me, Jose Views. If you like, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll be passing out the link in a few moments. I hope you hear me well. And anyway, just give me 1 second and we'll get going.
Presos políticos en Cuba.
You guys, so today's topic, in the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of activism. For those that don't know me, my name is Jose Views, and I created this channel in order to help dissidents, political prisoners, people with disabilities inside Cuba that were getting their basic human rights violated every day. And we've done that throughout 2 years. If you look, my platform was used to be pretty much every video except a few in Spanish. And the more and more in depth I got into it, the more I helped people, the more support that we gather with campaigns online, campaigns in the ground, with monies, more than I think $5 to $6,000 that was sent in medicine to the island. The more I understood that the tyrannies like Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, Iran, Russia, China, they use human rights, their violations of human rights as a way to manipulate the international community, a way to threaten us and undermined our stability from within. They do it with us, immigrants who fleed communism, fleed all these governments that are tyrannical and that put tremendous strains on their population by limiting just freedom of movement, freedom of speech, freedom of press, all the things that I've talked about here many times, and those who know me know that I always talk about. But it is time. It is a critical time in our history. It is a moment where many of these manipulations have manifested in a way of China, Russia, Iran, and all these other horrible nations like Venezuela and Nicaragua, Cuba. And I'm about to show you proof, reliable sources of not some like article somewhere. They're all been vetted. They all have secondary sources of how all these nations that have tyrannic governments are kind of connected in the way they're really undermining our American way of life. They're a threat to your family, to my family. They're a threat to the American spirit, most importantly. And the best way we can defend America, I put it in the hashtag below, is honestly, if we're able, is by thinking of protecting the U.S., protecting our liberties, protecting our way of life, making sure that our economy is stable and does not depend on any of this, tyrannic governments. Let me start by saying that I will, in a little bit, share the link. If any of you want to come in and discuss in this channel, I am sure you will be able to listen and get firsthand accounts of people who lived under these tyrannies, of people of the mentality that we are indoctrinated when we're in these nations about America, and how they, even though we want as Americans to be good neighbors, and as we want to have a world that is open, and we want a world that we can do business with, many of these nations do many of the things like business, and even sometimes they even unfortunately use the migrants and the people they have used to play, to play their game of destabilization of a nation, in this case, America. So America first is the hashtag there. And the reason I put that is because honestly, the only way we defend the world is by protecting America. If America is strong, it's kind of like when you're in the, you're in the plane, and the plane is, the first thing they tell you is before you help others, make sure your mask, your oxygen is taken care of first. So that's the main, if there's a main bottom line I want you to take out of this video today of all the things we're about to cover, is that we need to protect America. We need to make sure America is strong. And that's the only way we're going to make sure that the world is strong and the world can defeat all these evil powers that, imagine, they treat their people horribly. Imagine what they wanted to do to what they want to do to us, our enemy. I mean, they're themselves are the ones declaring us enemies. We have nothing but a lot of relations that we want to open up with these nations. We've done it with all of them at different points. And what we get in return is just ways of destabilization. It's just forms of trying to send migrations to try to put people against people. We're going to discuss all those topics that nobody wants to discuss. But most importantly, why we as Americans don't all unite against these horrible forces. Because at the end, we need to make America stronger. And the way of doing so is by addressing and making sure that we treat the criminal tyrannies of Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba. We can go on and on. There's a bunch of countries in Africa that have dictatorships that are pretty ruthless too. We have this nation, what is it, next to Russia? I'm thinking of the name in Spanish, Belarus. Belarus is also another dictatorship that right now is in the mix. And we have the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So today we're going to discuss that Russian-Ukraine conflict because it's very important into why this is coming to a breaking point. All these threats that we're facing from all these nations together, and it shows the chronology. We're going to show I'm going to show the timeline thanks to a great person that always helps me with this content, and also has helped a lot in the fight that we've done with the human rights and stuff. He sent me this other this source that has the chronology from like back in 2014 when the whole Ukraine-Russia thing started. And we're going to dive into it because after that, in January, we see a link between Venezuela and Cuba and Russia, and China, Russia. We see the link between Iran, Russia. We see now the link. Now they're trying to involve other nations that may have a situation going on in their nation, in their country right now because of the economy. And they're trying to create this axle of force against us, the U.S., and destabilize our allies, or at least the people that we negotiate with. So this is really important. I hope you enjoy. Let me say hi. I hope you're hearing me well. Let me say hi to the people in the chat right now. This is a really important live I'm doing. Temas de Cuba. I'm also transmitting by Temas de Cuba, by the way. A big hugs and big celebration to Temas de Cuba. It's a channel dedicated to the liberty of Cuba. We also, which we are right now in live. So a lot of people, a lot of content there in Spanish that soon I think we will have be able to put subtitles in Spanish there. For the people watching me who don't speak English, this is a great, this lives on Saturdays are going to be a great English lesson, I believe, in the way we address, our nation, America, right? So you're going to be able to interact. And most importantly, you're going to be able to share with a lot of new speakers, a lot of new people that typically don't see our content. You're going to be able to share your stories of how it is, how repressive tyrannies like Cuba, for example, in this case, affect our way of life here in America. So I had a little blink there, so I wanted to make sure we're good. I wanted to also say hi to Patria Gregory, a great patriot over there. He's from Romania. He also supports the Cuban cause, another country that was affected by communism. So again, in this channel, you're going to find a lot of stories, a lot of testimony on why these countries really have no real intent of the U.S. It shows the animosity and the intent of really hurting us. And when we say U.S., it means you, me, our family. It means our way of life. It means what we eat. It means what we buy, what we have access to. It means everything. So Alejandro, thank you for being there. Un abrazo grande, bro. I like so Alejandro is part of Temas de Cuba. We have Real News Sentinel. Again, one of my sources, one of the persons that helps me with the sources. Thank you so much for being there. My greatest respects. And really, if you really want to watch a real, serious understanding of politics and just world affairs, watch the Real News Sentinel. And he, just a patriot. That's all I would say. Again, Pedro Gary, thank you for being there. Alejandro. Okay, so everybody, thank you all for being there. I hope y'all can hear me fine. All right, I look and sound good. That's good to know. So now that I look and sound good, let's dive in and let's start getting into the meat and potatoes of what we need to do and what's happening right now. So as y'all know, just last night, President Biden came out and said that an attack from Russia to Ukraine, Russia on Ukraine, is imminent, meaning that in the next few days, the U.S. expects at least all of our intelligence forces and all of our military, military intelligence suggests that Russia is about to invade Ukraine. There's evidence I'm about to show you that suggests that as well from other nations. We're also going to discuss how to treat these nations. What should be our stance as Americans, and most importantly, what should our government do? And what language do these dictators kind of understand all the time? And I'm going to show you proof throughout. This is not just going to be one live. There's going to be every Saturday. We're going to go at it. I'm going to expose our threats. We're going to find ways of really addressing them and really making them, something that we can do as a whole and really unite. At the end, we are all Americans. And like I said, as a world community, as a free world community, we should all take that same stance against dictators that want to undermine us, against people that want to hurt us. And like I said, they manipulate the laws. They manipulate our relations with these nations. We have relations with Cuba. We have relations, believe it or not, even though they claim an embargo and all this kind of stuff. We have relations with Russia. We have relations with China, obviously. Our business ties are huge there. You all know very well all those, all that comes with those relations with China economically, and how everything we buy nowadays in the stores comes from China. In the middle of the pandemic, our masks that the CDC wanted us to wear come from China. So just realize that. It's critical, especially when at the end the purpose that I'm about to show you some evidence that suggests this. The purpose is that all these nations collaborate together and work together to really hurt America and to make sure that we are impacted and to slowly diminish and dwindle our obviously our way of life and on what we are capable of doing, because these nations don't understand that the reason America is what it is because of our freedoms. The reason why we trade, the reasons why our people live great lives and are able to have the purchasing power they have and are able to have businesses and are able to live life and live the American dream, and even immigrants that come from other nations are able to do so, is because and only because the American system. And if they were to imitate that, maybe their nations would take a similar path, but they don't. They take at the very best a socialist approach. In the case of China, Russia, Cuba, North Korea, they take a complete communist approach. Even though China's economy is open, don't fool yourself. When it's time, they will take away properties like they did in Cuba. So anyway, let's take that deep dive. I'll put the link after I'll show some of this evidence. First, let's go to the chronology, and I have some videos I can share with you with chronology with what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, right? So let's go there first. Anyway, let me bring this up for you guys. I hope you can see it well. So over here we have the chronology, the timeline of how the U.S. and thank you, News Sentinel, for this content. This is amazing stuff that I'm able to share with all of you. The timeline of major events leading up to the current status with Russia, right? Russia and Ukraine. So we got President Biden. I'm about to put you his words from last night. Addressing, saying, hey, an attack is imminent. If we go down here, we see that it all started in 2014. pretty much some forces for pro-Russia forces for Russia people that live in Ukraine pretty much decided to take action and form some type of insurgency inside the Ukraine. Then after that, there was a couple of things that happened. The international community started seeing Russia put forces, especially the U.S. Blew the whistle that Russia was putting a lot of military along the border with Ukraine. Then we saw other evidence that they were, just increasing their presence there. Macron tried to meet with Putin and all this kind of stuff. As all this is going on, right? So you see here, I'm about to put Biden's words, but as all this is going on, look what's happening right now as we speak in our end of the world here, Venezuela. So the vice president, so I'll put this news up. The vice president of Russia, which by the way is not a typical vice president, it's not a political vice president. It's actually a general of the Air Force and Intelligence Services of Russia, meets with Maduro, and as you see, Russia boosts military ties with Venezuela and visits to Cuba and Nicaragua next. They're already in Cuba right now. I'm about to show you what's going on with the Cuban and this guy. But the vice president, just take this in. The vice president of the Russian Federation is right now currently with Diaz-Canel, and I'm about to show you that evidence in a second. He's with Diaz-Canel meeting right now in Cuba, or at least he did either yesterday or today. So those are the reports. And Maduro came out and said that they support any Russia initiative, any Russia force or military movements. They're going to go right along. So they're right in our backfield. They also visited Nicaragua. This is the vice president of Russia. So they're doing this in one area, right? So we have that there. Over here, before I show you what's going on again with Ukraine and Russia, you're gonna see over here that this is the China, right? So China is still having their deal with Taiwan, and pushing force there, trying to measure what is going to be the U.S. response there, right? So we see that there, and I think I want to show you. Well, that's it. I'll show you there, and then I'm going to come back to show what President Biden said, and then I'm going to show you another video that suggests a CEO from a company of a CEO from a gas company that talked with Putin just a few months ago, and what he considers to be the right language to use with Putin. So first, let's listen to Biden.
On this Friday night, a far more urgent warning is coming from the U.S. president in a special address from the White House. Joe Biden says Vladimir Putin has made up his mind to invade Ukraine. Friday night, a far more urgent warning is coming from the On this Friday night, a far more urgent warning is coming from the U.S. president in a special address from the White House. Joe Biden says Vladimir Putin has made up his mind to invade Ukraine within days, and a Russian misinformation campaign is laying the trap. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Melvin on the evidence.
New video shows Russian tanks mere kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. U.S. President Joe Biden had hoped to avert a war. Tonight, his dire new assessment.
As of this moment, I'm convinced he's made the decision. We have reason to believe that.
Biden believes Russian President Vladimir Putin will not only invade Ukraine in the coming days, but target the capital, Kyiv, a city of nearly 3 million people. Citing significant U.S. intelligence and that massive military buildup, officials now estimate 190,000 troops are conducting live drills virtually surrounding Ukraine.
Make no mistake, if Russia pursues its plans, it will be responsible for a catastrophic and needless war of choice.
Pointing to an increase of violence, a car bomb in the Russian breakaway city of Donetsk in Ukraine. With sirens blaring, Russian separatists began evacuating frightened civilians, the elderly, and an orphanage to the safety of Russia. Images playing out on TV, the rebel leader warning it's Ukraine behind these attacks.
в Российскую Федерацию.
Turns out this video was recorded 2 days ago, staged, just the kind of fake crisis Washington says Russia would use to justify invading Ukraine.
All these are consistent with the playbook the Russians have used before to set up a false justification to act against Ukraine.
Flexing its military muscle, the Kremlin announced nuclear drills this weekend. Putin sticking to his guns, pledging to protect Russia's interests.
We will hold Russia accountable for its actions. The West is united and resolved.
Secretary of State Blinken and his Russian counterpart agreed to meet next week, but the U.S. president warned any military action would slam that door to diplomacy shut. Lisa?
So much anxiety. All right, Joy Melbourne in Washington tonight.
So anyway, so that's the situation currently.
It's a big holiday season with big.
That's the situation currently. Let me go here and take this out. That's the situation currently. And next, I'm going to share a video of kind of like what's happening, with the CEO, like I said, that spoke with Putin, Vladimir Putin, the dictator of Russia. He spoke with him probably a few. I think it was in November, so 3 months ago. And how he perceives Putin, how to address Putin. Anyway, that's the situation there in Russia. Now, as that's going on, I already showed you that the vice president is in Nicaragua, Venezuela, and now currently in Cuba, 90 miles off the U.S. shores, addressing ways of military assistance and of military, let's say, actions that they could do together. Cuba is right now severely impacted thanks to the Trump sanctions and also to the obviously the pandemic. Tourists not going to Cuba. We have a campaign of no travel to Cuba. We also have a campaign of sanctions. Unfortunately, throughout this 2 years of us helping all these dissidents, political prisoners, and people with disabilities in Cuba, we figured out that we were just putting a drain, like a little raindrop on the situation. And at the end, we're being used. And we will be, and we keep getting used by, in this case, the Cuban dictatorship to kind of be like, when you have a kidnapper kind of asking for ransom money. That's kind of what's happening. And they're doing it with our political prisoners, dissidents, activists, all that kind of stuff. And we came to a realization that the only thing and the only language that, and this is not new. This comes from the 60s. Again, that's why we bring back this Cold War. And the question that is present is, and I'll put the link in just a second, is there going to be a second Cold War? We have China in play. We have Russia in play, the big, world powers, obviously undermining our U.S., our U.S. government. And we, as Americans, I don't think that we have enough. I don't know. I don't see a lot of conversation about the threat this poses to our homeland. And most importantly, what can we do to confront it? And the idea is sanctions. In the case of Cuba, I always have put this hashtags, a lot of sanctions, no travel to those nations, in this case, Cuba, but no travel to Russia, no travel to China, no business relations. And we even created like this. I don't know if this is in Spanish or not, but I'm going to put it real quick. It's a great document that came out of the group of Temas de Cuba that I want to share real quick. We met with Congress people. We had appointments and everything. And our point is, you got to be tough with dictators. It's what this CEO that I'm about to show you said, that just met with Putin 2 months ago. We addressed, a group of us got together and we created this letter. Sorry there. It's just pretty much called Parón Federal. Really what it is, as you can see there, is, as you can see here, it's just a bunch of sanctions. So tough sanctions do impact the stance, right? They understand the hard language. They do not understand the language of let's work together, let's diplomacy. They're just measuring up when they use those terms. The diplomacy has to come with a hard stick proposal. It has to come with some backing of sanctions and a lot of political will to really undermine how they're trying to manipulate us. If China and Russia, which by the way met, so they just didn't meet with Cuba and Venezuela just right now. They already met with China, and in fact, they haven't attacked Ukraine as of yet because many experts believe they're waiting for the Beijing Olympics to end. So anyhow, that's there's so many things politically that they're trying to measure up and trying to see if we're going to blink, trying to see if we're going to be if we're going to be undeterred and we're going to really post a tough hand and a tough stance against them, or if we're going to be weak and we're going to let them just pretty much just take more ground in Ukraine, take more ground in all the other areas they're at. I put the Syria. I know that we were able to kill the what's called the guy from ISIS, one of the leaders of ISIS over there. That was great news. But Syria still pros in the Middle East, with Iran still obviously trying to sabotage our biggest ally in the region, Israel. But anyway, the point is, what works in our view, from let's say from our experience right now, is a lot of sanctions, a lot of toughness, a lot of even though if it may seem cold, it may seem not practical, but believe me, like I'm about to share, this is what this CEO of this gas company, said about Putin. So I'm going to share that with you. That way you kind of see what I'm talking about with all the sanctions. I think it's in the 4th. So let me look for that video. I think it's in channel number 4. Let's see for it. Let's see if I find it for you guys. Yep, it's right here. So I'm going to play you this video and just see what this CEO says about Putin and how to address Putin.
Danica, defense. Yara.
A new challenge.
Reese, defense.
Check.
Adriana, defense. Ava.
Proving myself. Check. It's not always easy. Check. Did I ever dream of this? Every night.
But,
when you find what moves you, it gets you through.
CEO of a major company addressing how to treat Putin. So
Brian Adams on Moo Drink Dairy Alternative.
Sorry about that. Yikes. Apologize. My apologies, y'all. Give me 1 second. There you go. Okay. We should be on now. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this video is currently not playing. Let's see if it plays now. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I think it's this one, right? Well, the video is not playing, but what he discusses in this interview, in his meeting with Putin, is that Putin is a bully, like we all know, and Putin as a bully, the only language he understands is really toughness. So you have to.
It's calling, echoing through stone with tales of the past, and from freshly opened casks just out of hibernation. Now is the time to answer. Scotland is calling. It's calling from deep in the glens, high above the peaks, and from lively cities bursting with flavour. Now is the time to answer. Scotland is calling.
Let's see if it comes out now.
It's calling from deep in the glens, high above the peaks, and from lively cities bursting with flavour. Now is the time to answer.
We may let that go. This video is not playing.
Mr. Petrenko, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I want to start with an interaction you had with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, back in 2019. What is he like?
He is, I would say, a bully. So he likes to be to behave like this kind of macho man, whatever, alpha, whatever. I don't want to use all this kind of definitions like that. But again, at least what I have seen, he prefers to lead these negotiations not in the spirit of reciprocity or in the spirit of trying to find a win-win situation, but more like, okay, so I'm strong and that's what I request, demand, insist on. And you have to be prepared for this kind of negotiations. well before, because only when you have a strong negotiating position, then you can say, and you should also have other options when you can tell him into his face.
Based on that 2019 interaction and what you know of him, how likely do you think it is that Vladimir Putin will invade Ukraine?
I think it really depends if they first can find a pretext for such an invasion, because they regularly, unfortunately, invade other countries, but they always use some kind of pretext for that. So it has nothing to do with Ukraine. And invading a different country just because you have some problems with NATO doesn't seem very logical to many people. It's like, for example, you want to confront a person, but you start beating some very different person. So it's not even, again, for such a macho man as Putin, if he wants to show that he's on par with NATO, with the United States, he should not, again, invade Ukraine. So then he should confront the United States. There is this kind of narrative that, in fact, Russia is in fight with the United States just on the territory of Ukraine.
Russia, of course, doesn't need to invade Ukraine in order to inflict damage. It could simply just turn off the taps. How would that impact your operations?
It will impact us. We are one of the biggest transporters of Russian gas and oil, steel, and also our market depends on imports of both oil and gas. We are integrated into the European market, but if they further use gas as a weapon, completely stopping all the supplies through Ukraine and in general to the European market, it will send the gas prices and oil prices even higher. It will hurt the consumers in Ukraine and not only in Ukraine. And speaking of my own, of Naftogaz, a national gas company, it will, of course, affect our revenues. It will affect the taxes that we pay to the state budget. And for example, we pay taxes to the state budget roughly in the same amount as Ukraine spends on military, on our defense. So we are by far the largest taxpayer and one of the economic kind of pillars of Ukraine. So that's why it would have a huge detrimental effect on the entire fiscal system, on the state budget, and on the economy as a whole.
How much of Russia's gas passes through Ukraine and then onwards to Europe?
The 1/3 of Russian gas goes through Ukraine.
But given how much or how large of a customer Europe is, do you think that Vladimir Putin would actually take that step and choke off supply to Ukraine and therefore to much of Europe as well?
That's a very good question. I think it's unlikely that he will completely shut down transit through Ukraine until Nord Stream 2 is operating. Because currently, if he shuts down transit through Ukraine, it will mean that his customers in Europe won't get gas under long-term contracts. It will be a breach of these contracts. It will hurt their not just revenue streams, but also, again, their reputation. And again, these off-takers of Russian gas will go to court, and they will claim huge sums from Putin, from Russia, from Gazprom. So that's why it's unlikely that he will do it. But as soon as Nord Stream 2 is operating and he can really divert all the flows to Nord Stream 2, then immediately he will shut down the transit through Ukraine.
There has, of course, been a lot of talk about Nord Stream 2, the pipeline. Which
anyway, they start talking about energy and keep the conversation on the dependence of Europe on gas there. But you get the sense, of what we're talking about. So, and I put all that because, again, if we go back to the timeline, you see, how things kind of happen and currently where we at. So over here, I'll go down and you'll see the timeline. This kind of leads, again, it's not just Russia. China does the same thing with our supply and our chain. We're suffering it right now in the markets. When we go to the groceries to go buy things that are made in China, everything's more expensive. Not just because of the policies we put up protectionism, but because we're dependent on it. If we're not as dependent as we are on China, just like Russia, just like Europe is not as dependent as they are on the Russian gas, this would not be happening. We wouldn't have to worry about this. It will be secondary, and it's very easy to do it if we decide to understand our protectionism. It's actually going to do us better, especially because we're going to be able to do business with the world in a better way too. Not just keep on, trading with all these countries that anyway, at the end, just want to defeat us and want to bring us to collapse. You see here in 22, well, January, everything's happening now. Since January 2nd of 2022 is when all the kind of like when the party got started. But if you look back here in 2021, you see I'm going through the timeline here. It goes back to 2015. As I was saying, Russia already kind of started when Ukraine started saying, hey, we want to be part of NATO. That's when everything kind of went to loose and everything kind of went down. Then in 2016, kind of the same thing. And things got kind of deep in about, I'll say 2021, November. As you see here, satellites imagery showed, a buildup of troops near the border, like I was talking. And then you see here in December, there's a, President Biden has to make an announcement and say what kind of was going on. January 2nd, a call with the Biden and the Ukrainian president, who, by the way, right now is supposed to meet with the vice president and also supposed to meet with all the NATO allies at the summit over there in I think it's in Europe and Germany. 2022 January 22nd. You see here Canada obviously says offers $120 million in support, financial assistance to Ukraine. Canada, there's a huge Ukrainian population that lives in Canada. Then Canada obviously denounces what happened at the kindergarten in there was a preschool attacked in Ukraine. So then that happens. This same thing that happened with Ukraine could happen with China. This next page with the Taiwan situation. Let me take this out. Sorry. Take this out as well. We don't need this. Sorry about that. All right. So that could also happen with the China relations. That same sequence can start happening with Taiwan and the South Sea in Asia. That same sequence can happen. And again, we can go back into a Cold War affairs, but not just with one nation, like we did with the Soviet Union, but with a axle of China, Russia, and then little territories that they declare of enemies. These countries all say they're enemies of declare the U.S. enemies, and like Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, Iran. So they're going to take this opportunity to test us from all those multiple angles. And this China is going to use the economy to affect us the most, which is a threat to our way of life and our well-being. How do we treat all these threats? How do we address it? Well, again, the idea here is with sanctions, with being tough, with being creative, we can make most of our economy, and also we can make sure to protect our backyard, not letting Cuba and Venezuela have military ties with these nations by blockading them. Cuba always denounced there's a blockade, there's an embargo. Let's have a real embargo. There's no embargo with Cuba. As of right now, there's a big campaign down in Miami, which I don't agree with, by the way, with American Airlines, because American Airlines travels to Cuba just like many other airlines. And I think I'm about to put the link because you know what? Conversation may get really good right now. So there's this campaign from a Cuban community down in Miami trying to boycott American Airlines. But there's more than American Airlines. There's like about, 20 airlines, or like 12. I think it's 8 or 12 airlines, including some really small ones that travel to Cuba every day. The point is not that. The point is that we shouldn't travel at all. We shouldn't feed a nation that wants to defeat us. We shouldn't keep funding nations that want to undermine what we do and what we're about. It should be we should only negotiate and have relations with nations that want to do good for their people. Why are we sponsoring? Because that's what we're doing when we travel, when we do business, when we trade, when we encourage all these nations that want to defeat us, and we have all this. I mean, of course, we're Americans. We have liberty to do whatever we want. But at the same time, just realize that when we're doing that, we are assisting these governments, these tyrannic governments, to hurt us in the back end, like they're doing now. So we open the wall, we open the things with China. Now China, we're dependent on China. So now China can affect us and can affect our way of life. We wanted to be nice with Russia. We now have Russia. We can go to academy and buy Russian bullets. It's so bad it is. So we even honestly probably help their military infrastructure. So that's how crazy it is. Cuba, they call us our enemies. Okay, when you're in Cuba, you see anti-imperialist signs everywhere. Everybody who goes to Cuba will not tell me wrong. They don't know. And what happens is they use the travel to honestly find ways to undermine us from within. We have people here who, including Cubans, who say, oh my goodness, it's the U.S. fault for what goes on in Cuba, when it's only the tyranny's fault. That's how crazy it is. That's how really big of a problem this is. And that's why we need to address it. And that's why I'm going to create this series of really understanding, is there really a second Cold War? What can we do to really do anything about it? So this is the question for today's live. I'm about to put it here on the chat. But the question I pose is, we are in a second Cold War? Are we about to enter a second Cold War with all these nations? And most importantly, what can we do to confront this as a nation? This is something that can unite every American. We're so divided. We have so many things going on right now, and so many things that we have differences on. This is one thing that we should all think alike. We should all be against tyranny. We should all be against communism. We should all be for America to do better, for America to not have a threat, for America to not get undermined, for us to not get espionage, for us to not have cyber warfare, and to make sure that we are against any enemy that provides those threats to us. And those include, like I put in the title, China, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, and the 4 dictators you saw on the image are the heads of those states. They're the heads of that evil that want to defeat us. The people of those nations, they're all great. I mean, at least I know the Cubans are, but this does not mean that they're tyrannic governments, and the tyrannic governments don't even care about them. Imagine how much they care about us. Okay, so that's why we got to really think carefully of how foreign, in real politics, we really address these challenges we have geopolitically and what we do about it. So anyway, that's the question I posed today. I'm going to share the link in case somebody wants to come in or not, or expose something out. Oh, I'm going to talk about the boycott that the Cuban community is doing down there in Miami with American Airlines. I don't agree with it, by the way. I'm going to say why. I think it's not American Airlines' fault. It's really our fault as a nation for even allowing all those flights into Cuba every day. That honestly is the only reason that they're sustained right now. If not, they would be completely depleted, and they wouldn't be even able to. If Russia would have gone in there, they would have pretty much had to pay and everything. Like they would have had to completely subsidize Cuba in order for Cuba to back them up on this military effort. Now they have this relief from us, Cuban Americans mostly, not just Americans, Cuban Americans mostly that have family back there like myself. They're depending on our money, on our American dollar, to honestly sustain that nation. And now they're using that dollar to join forces with Russia against us. That's how evil this plan is. That's how messed up it is. That's why I think I need to talk about it, why I need to address it, why I think I look crazy by doing this. But honestly, y'all, it means a lot to me because we are killing ourselves from within. We are really hurting ourselves by not confronting with a heavy hand these nations that are really doing so much harm in the world. I saw it for this last 2 years. I saw how much harm they do. I saw how much good people want to help. And I also saw really why our hands are tied and how people blame America for the things that other tyrannies do. It's so disgusting to see people that you seem that America honestly provides a lot for blame ourselves for when it's not our fault that there's tyranny in these countries, and that these countries you choose to go against us and to be our enemies and to really provoke us to not do well, and most importantly to defeat our way of life. And that's not acceptable. I see a lot of people here. So let me put the link in case somebody wants to come in. Sorry about that. I said I was going to do that. So today's question is that, and obviously in this channel, you're going to see sometimes a lot of people are going to come and they're going to express how, we are hurting ourselves by not addressing the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the name of the live today. the elephant in the room is addressing the people that want to take our heads off. Those people don't want us to succeed. Those people want us to be poor like them because of their bad policies, because of what they do, because of the types of governments they have, because of their systems. And they want us to imitate that. They want us to take shape of who they are instead of trying to be like us, which obviously shows success and shows what is, so far the best system that has worked for people. So, and not just that, then they try to really split us from our allies. I know that, for example, Brazil, which is an ally of the U.S., it's like now like trying to talk to Putin or Russia. Anyway, I have a friend here. Thank you so much, Tyler, for joining. How's everything going, brother? Thank you so much for helping out the cause with all that content you gave me. How's it going, man?
Well, good, Jose. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, but at the same time, trying to start. I'm going to get better as we go. I'm trying to start talking about this topic that it needs to be addressed. I think we talked about it for a while. You're actually the first one that said, "Hey, I mean, yeah, we're doing all this great stuff for the people there, but when are we going to do something, something about what's happening with us, with the Americans?" And you brought it up, and I wanted to. I feel good doing it. It's going to be hard getting people to think about it because I think as Americans we don't perceive the threat.
No. Hey, greetings, Patriot Gregory. How are you?
Patriot.
Hey, no, Jose. Look, you asked the question: are we in a second Cold War? And I believe we are on a Cold War 2.0 since Putin took power. And that is always, for the last 20, 30 years, that is this mentality across the world that the U.S. is guilty for everything that's going on. And in the last 10, 8 years now, a big part of the American population also believe that it is our fault what is going on in the world. And I think we need to have a little bit of patriotism and analyze things how they really are. It is not the U.S. fault that there is a tyranny in Cuba. Let's not forget what Cuba did to the U.S. The only country that had 60 nuclear rockets pointed at us has been Cuba, 90 miles. They stole from American citizens' property. They incarcerated American citizens. They mistreated, abused. The Cuban dictatorship have done everything, and it has not changed in the last 63 years. It's not a different government down there. It's the very same people. It is the Castros. So why should the U.S. change if the enemy remains the same? And I know there are some that believe, well, at some point we need to put our hands down, talk, and get things moving forward. But you cannot negotiate with a gangster. The gangster will continue to be a gangster. So you become better, more tolerant, and you decide to negotiate with a gangster, or you stand up by your belief. And I think the time that have elapsed, the things that have happened, make us believe that it's time to get in bed with the gangster, and it cannot be that way. It's the same is happening with Putin. Let's not forget that Cuba 3 weeks ago says no when Russia promised to put nuclear weapons in Cuba. That Cuba said nothing. Those nuclear weapons, let's remember the American people, those nuclear weapons were not aimed to Antarctica or Canada. They were aimed to the U.S., to your homes, to your family, to your schools. So now the Biden administration have decided to get a little bit closer to the people that are doing that to us. That is a mistake. And I think that in the universities and the younger population of the U.S. need to read a little bit back, a little bit of history, what happened in the last 60, 50, 40 years, because this didn't begin with Obama. This began with Fidel Castro and 1959, this started. So we might make a mistake here that might threaten life. The Cubans keep arriving at Miami. These are not the generations of the 60s or the 70s that were patriots, that they stood for the same belief that America had. The group of Cubans that are arriving now, they just want better economical conditions. Let's say 90% of them. There are some that have political motives, but most of them want better economical conditions. And they are no different than the Mexican immigrants. They are no different than the Panamanian. They are no different. So what is happening is the dictatorship is infiltrating agents of opinion, mainly because there is really no sabotage going on. But they want to change the view of the American people towards Cuba, and they are achieving that. Little by little, more concessions are happening. The law is not being enforced. There is an embargo, a very light, symbolic embargo to claim for some justice, what it was done in the 50s. But the US is more and more tolerant every day. So the dictatorship keeps infiltrating these people, and some of them just don't care. They come to the US and they tell you, oh, but we are Cubans. The patriotism has disappeared from Miami. Miami is the center of all the negotiations with Cuba. Miami is the center of all the illegalities and the things that go on that end up helping Cuba. The Castros have pre-Miami people that they trust to run some of these businesses. And those businesses is using taxpayers' dollars, and they are funneling right back to Cuba, right back to Venezuela. And then they sit on the bed with Putin to threaten us. So I think Americans, we need to look a little bit back. We need to read a little bit back of history to understand what is going on, because it's not different. The only thing different is that we are weaker, and that is the real danger here. And I shut up now because I'm talking too much.
No. I totally agree with that. And it's from so it's two threats. It's the threat of them trying to be used as a region of Russia militarily, as a logistics, and then the biggest threat, which is the doctrine population and of Cubans that like myself come to the U.S. and because of the indoctrination, they don't realize that when they are making businesses that feed back to Cuba, meaning travel agencies, sending clothes like store, to make stores down there, all this kind of stuff, just creating businesses that feed back to Cuba. They're not just financing the sustainability of that government, but they're also impacting everything that that the Americans actually did to really help Cubans free themselves, which was the embargo, which, by the way, is there because of, like you said, all the criminal acts that were done against Americans and also Cubans. But in 1959, the Americans there was thousands of Americans. You did a study, right, of like, what was it, $12 billion that was stolen from Americans in 1959 or something like that?
Yeah, it was 8 billion. 8 billion, but the total amount based with interest and compensation that they have now is about 12 to 15 billion that these people have lost. Because remember, they lost those businesses that they paid for it, but they haven't been able to use it for 63 years because they just took it from them and they give it zero compensation. So,
and they're about to do it again, not just to us there, but in China. They're about to do it in Russia. Like, if we keep messing, like, the only thing that can really help the situation, Russia and Ukraine, and I'm going to you, Patrick Gregory, now, is that is if the oligarchs convince Putin that, and we are hard enough to say to the oligarchs, all those millionaires, Russian millionaires that own soccer clubs and are all gas and oil, heads, to tell them, hey, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to, do transactions if this happens. And I hope that we're putting that stance, and I hope that as Americans, we also understand that, we shouldn't promote or engage with any pro-Russian propaganda, because I've seen some of that too. Some people saying, hey, Russians are really doing, wouldn't we do the same? And like, no, we don't. We have never, I haven't seen the U.S. put their whole 70% of the military in the U.S.-Mexico border. I haven't seen that happen, ever. Patrick, ¿cómo está? How's it going? I want to say hi in Spanish. How's it going? I don't hear you. Patrick Gregory.
Hi, Jose. No. Hi, Rydell. How you doing? You don't hear me?
Good.
Okay. Let me see.
It's good now. It's good now, Gregory. It's good.
Yeah, you're good now.
Oh, there's a delay. I'm going to get out and come back again.
Okay, that sounds good. So like, and then I think it's going to be new for people to really understand what, because people, I think, get they see alarm bells and they run away instead of like seeing what the alarm is, looking at the fire. And what we're trying to suggest here is, right now in Cuba, the vice president, which is a general from the military, is not a regular vice president, is in Cuba right now trying to negotiate this military ties. So let's go to Patrick Gregory. How's it going, man?
Good. Hi, how you doing? Thank you so much for
thank you for joining.
Hi, Rydell. Nice to meet you, and nice to be part of this first English-speaking show, and I really feel privileged. In answering your, thank you. In answering your question, is there a second Cold War? Let's take a look at the whole picture at this moment, just in a few words. Russia is threatening to invade Ukraine. At the same time, Russia is playing his game in tiding its presence in Cuba, in Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Okay, that's the Russian side. China, we know what happened a couple of years ago. China with Hong Kong. China has basically taken over Hong Kong. Hong Kong is no more what was supposed to be, what China negotiated to be and agreed to be. One thing. The second thing, Taiwan. China is flying planes over Taiwan just as if it were their own territory, and they are provoking. Same as the Russians. Russians are in Ukraine provoking. China are in Taiwan provoking. China has sent a lot of emissaries in Latin American countries. We know the presence of China in different countries, especially looking for raw materials for their industry, especially those materials that are significant today for our technologies. Iran's presence is emboldened by the shameful withdrawal of the United States from Afghanistan, and also of the weak signs of this administration. We see in Canada what is happening now with the truckers. So my question is, why is all this happening at this time? All of them at the same time. And I believe that it's a consequence of the weak administration that has taken over this country, the United States of America, in January last year. While President Trump was in power, he kept things under control. Not only under control, but first of all, there were no new wars in his 4 years. No new wars were declared. On the contrary, many the conflicts have ceased and ceased to exist because of Trump's foreign policies. And we have seen a strengthening of the U.S. presence and U.S. military and the U.S. economy, also the U.S. influence over the nations, especially over Russia and over China. Unfortunately, because of this current administration, a weak current administration who has made terrible mistakes, both in national policies and internationally, we have shown a weak administration of which has emboldened our enemies: Russia, China, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, all our common enemies. And we can see that there is an agenda which is above each and every individual countries, individual states. It's like a chess game being played by somebody or some superior power that is influencing the state of affairs on all the planet, in all the countries in the world. So is there a second Cold War? Yes, it is. But this time it is a second Cold War. It's not a Cold War as we had with the Russians. It is a world war, a Cold World War.
Right. There's more nations. It's an axle. Right? Exactly. What I will say, and to your point, I will say, for example, in some points, one of the few things I differ from President Trump was in his, let's say, his public statements about Putin. But I will say, for the Biden administration, my critique is, for example, sending people to the U.S. embassy in Cuba right now. He's just his administration, at least I don't know if he technically knows or not, but his administration send people to diplomats to work in the U.S. embassy in Havana. And we know how that ended just a few years ago. As part of this cycle of Cold War mentality that we're talking about is, the sonic
attacks.
sonic, attacks that they did on the embassy workers. And obviously, and not just that, the protests in July 11th, what we heard from the administration was, okay, we're going to take a step back. We're not going to go back to the Obama years after that. And on that, I do have to criticize the Biden and being a little weak there and opening up again to having relations with a terrorist country. Cuba, let's make no mistake, it's been proven, just like North Korea, and like now we're going to see with Russia, they have no boundaries in when it comes down to human rights, nor much less undermining the U.S. So I don't know. I just take two thoughts. Even though I do gotta say, President Trump stance on Putin himself, I would have wanted to see, even though obviously he kept things, Putin was not trying this stuff he's trying now with President Trump. At the same time, there was some nice words and pleasantries and stuff between them that I didn't agree with. As like I said, I think these people, dictators don't, they don't deserve any type of pleasantries. But anyway, another thing I wanted to bring up with you guys is, so China is seeing all this. They Putin and I can't say his name, met the president of China or whoever they have posed there, and they pretty much, it seems like Russia's not attacking Ukraine until the Olympics, the Winter Olympics end, and it seems like again China was playing a bunch of propaganda there with one of the people from the minorities they put in concentration camps, doing the torch, the Olympic torch, showing that, hey, we're not, you guys are lying, when we have seen evidence of what they do to minority religions there. And then also sequestering or kidnapping the tennis player. And there we saw a good instance of the West, of a international free company saying, hey, we're not going to do business with you until we find out more about this tennis player. So this woman's tennis player, she denounced being harassed or raped or something by a communist official in China. She's out of sight and out of scene and out of vision for like about, I want to say it was 2-3 months. The WTA, the Women's Tennis Association, took away all the contracts from China. They decided not to do their big Open, which would represent, I think, a lot of millions of dollars. I don't remember the exact amount. And they did the right thing. Hopefully more organizations do that. And hopefully that trend continues. And I don't know. I agree with you, Patriot. There's a lot of things happening at the same time that lead me to believe that this second World War, Cold War, is going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. And my personal opinion is that up to a certain point, Putin is bluffing. He just wants to see how much he can pressure, how much he can threaten the European Union, how much he can threaten the United States to get away with what he wants to prove that he will take over Ukraine if the pressure from the United States increases proportionally. And considering this administration, I don't believe that this administration is going to counteract against Putin when Putin advances. As a matter of fact, this morning I just saw on Fox News, they have a newscaster in Ukraine. They were actually running for their lives because Russians already started this morning to use artillery shells on Ukraine positions, and they have already been casualties. But we have not seen an escalation, on a great scale escalation of the war. Let's say of the war.
Yeah.
And for the people on Facebook, please come to YouTube, subscribe, share, and like. So obviously that will help a lot. Right then.
The administration has said already that there will be no physical confrontation between U.S. or OTAN and Russia, except they go past the limits of the Ukraine border towards Poland, even more than that. What they promise is, like, if they go into Ukraine, they're going to be sanctions. Now, why there are so many troops in there? It is the power game, but I don't think either that is going to be, American troops fighting Russian troops. But Ukraine is surrounded on three sides by Russian forces right now. But you have, stuff to the left of that border, Poland, everything down there. And they got to put a stop at that somehow. But I think if Russia goes into Ukraine and they don't target NATO troops, they don't target American troops, this would be just sanctions, the sanctions game. Well, Russia doesn't want them either, because they are going to trigger the SWIFT bank accounts, which is the main way to transfer money, at that level between big banks. They all use SWIFT. And once they take away the password, they take away the username for Russia, they make it illegal, they red flag it. They have to find alternative ways. And, they can lose up to 80% of their trade, at least through legal means. So Russia doesn't want that either. So I don't see, it doesn't make sense for Putin to threaten and actually go ahead and do it.
Absolutely.
He's the only one that's going to lose.
Absolutely. It's a matter of who is going to blink first, because both sides know that there is no winner. If there's a confrontation, if there's a war, there is no winner. Neither the United States will get what it's looking for, neither Russia will get what it's looking for, because it's going to be, it's not going to be a face-to-face confrontation between Russia and the United States. It's not going to be. I believe that if Russia actually invades Ukraine, Ukraine will have to call on assistance. The United States or the European Union or NATO will not intervene in Ukraine unless Ukraine calls for assistance.
Well, the Ukrainian president right now is meeting with all of them, and the U.S. told them not to go. I think the administration or somebody, it was the State Department, not the State Department, the Defense Department, all the administration. Somebody said that, or I heard a report of somebody saying that they don't think he's going to be able to get back in the country, back into Ukraine. At least I saw an expert saying that, and not just that. So while all this is happening, how do all other nations in this evil axle take the opportunity to go after the U.S.? So the U.S. is focused and NATO is focused on that. How does that translate into what China does? What does Cuba? Well, Cuba and Russia, they're together right now, and they're worrying about that. But how about North Korea? Did they do something to generate attention or to deflect attention? That's the question I have. I don't know if there's not much talk about all those other horrible nations that or at least nation states, because they're the governments, not the people. Let me make sure I say that. We have nothing against the people of any of those nations. We have our issue is with their governments and how they are trying to really attack us, and we are not, in my opinion, paying enough attention to it.
I agree with that. And if we get if you take a closer look at what's happening with the interference of Russia in Latin America, in Cuba, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, why did Russia send his emissaries, his ambassadors or ministers, foreign ministers to Nicaragua, to Venezuela, and to Cuba? Why? Because it's one of the pieces of this chess match that Putin is playing with the West, trying to increase the pressure on different fronts. They have a pressure right now in Ukraine, in Europe. Now they're trying to increase the pressure in Latin America, in Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba. At the same time, I'm not sure that Russia and China are in very good terms. If they are not fighting each other politically, it's because their common enemy is the United States. So as long as both countries are fighting against the United States, they will look as if they are in agreement or they are friends. I don't believe that Russia and China are friends, because China is as much a threat to the Russians as it is for the United States and the rest of the world. In what Cuba is concerned, First of all, the fact that the American administration has decided to reopen the embassy in Havana is telling me that there are two possibilities. One is a show of weakness of the administration and the pressure of the Democrats who are actually conducting the policies of this administration. It's not the president. The president is just a pawn in the hands of the Democrat agenda. And the other option is that the United States has decided to reopen the embassy in order to be closer and within Cuba and be able to monitor and spy on the activities of not only the Cuban government but also of all the emissaries that Russia or China or any other power would send over to Cuba. So to be able to monitor them more closely. That is my opinion.
I agree with that, and since I have Raidel here, one of the last things I want to jump on is I think this is in Spanish, so I'll have to translate this and make an English format. But Raidel helped write this. We've been trying to get the ear of Congress and Senate people, especially federal authorities, to we've been talking about this internally and sending letters for a while. And the idea is one of the things that we asked in this document was, for example, to not have to not open the embassy in Cuba, for example. So I think that's in Spanish, so I'll leave that alone. But another point was, for Cuba, for all travel to for there not to be any business relations with Cuba for a while. Another item we had was for remittances for Cubans to in the Bush years. There was a pretty good thing that and the problem was that Cuban Americans, we didn't follow it because because it was a good sanction and it had the same effects. It would have had the same effects that the Trump sanctions had this time around. So we've been trying to get the ear of politicians. So far, we hear about other things. That's the interesting part. We meet with these people, and so far a lot of other good conversations happen. But about this topic of being strong and putting sanctions to, in this case, Cuba, but I think it applies to every other nation we're talking about, we don't get much response. So I don't know if Raidel wants to touch on it a little bit, or we want to leave it for another video. But
I think for the people that is watching and never seen what we are about, we are all of here have some sort of Cuban background, even Gregory by heart. So we can't fix what's going on with Russia or Ukraine. We can't just talk about it. However, we can do something about Cuba. Because Cuba, we separate the problems and each one take care of what they know most. And we know Cuba. We know how to fix Cuba. And the problem is that we get no backup. And the problem is that there are two ways of looking at the Cuba problem. There is the Cuba, what's best for the Cubans, and there is the Cuba. There is the American side saying, okay, what's best for the U.S. regarding Cuba? So Cuba, for the longest time, Cuba have been an enemy, have a hostile attitude against the U.S. They might not launch rockets openly against Miami, but they are name an enemy of the United States, and you're going to see Cuban influence. You're going to see Cuba sitting at the table with them. That doesn't fail. Cuba is an enemy of the United States. However, we are confusing the attitude and the voices of the Cuban immigration that resides in Miami with what Cuba is. And they are quite the opposite. The Cubans in Miami are in there because they couldn't make it in Cuba because of the dictatorship, because they have to escape, most of them, political prosecution, you name it. So to think that giving a pardon to the dictatorship that put those Cubans in Miami, it is doing any good to those people, is a mistake of Biden and the administration, and it's the same mistake that made Obama. So then there is the other side of this coin, which is those very Cubans. Some of them, not all, but some of them have decided that the dictatorship is not that bad. They just rather sell their soul and go back. And the only people that is paying for this with their life is the Cuban people living in Cuba. And on top of that, the U.S., we are losing respect. It is not fair to all the American citizens that lost everything. Let's not forget again what Cuba did, and it keeps doing it every day. So since Obama, the solution was to open the gates to Cuba. More money, more remittances, more travel, more phone calls, more closeness. So let's not forget that when Obama went to Cuba, they didn't want to welcome him at the airport. While Obama was in there was a Russian spy ship. We forget quick, there was a Russian spy ship in Havana Bay. And as soon as Obama left, let's say 6 months later, then we come up with all this sonic attack on the embassy. So Cuba does not respect the U.S. Cuba does not understand what it means to have an honest conversations. They are gangster. It's a cartel. So you cannot, what the U.S. cannot sit with El Chapo this morning and talk, because you can't, because it's a gangster. So we need to treat the same way Cuba. That's why you can talk to Kim Jong-un, because you talk to him today and tomorrow he launched 2 rockets when he needs money. That's why you cannot talk openly with Putin. The only language these people understand is strength.
Force.
So it is a mistake to think that now Biden can go and sit down with Cuba, tap on the back, forgive everything that have been done, and it's going to be different. It's going to be the same. It's just going to cost taxpayers money. So we came with the solution and say, you know what? If Cubans come to the U.S. taking advantage of special immigration laws that allow Cubans to come in and get residence, legal residence, within a year and 1 day, but between a year and 6 months, they are back in Cuba. So there is a complicity, a lack of seriousness on all this matter. Cuban traveling to Cuba, Cuban Americans traveling to Cuba, taking up to $200,000 in every plane. The calculations are about $200,000 per travel. Mm-hmm. So that is feeding the same dictatorship towards the one we have some sanctions, and even the sanctions are not being applied. U.S. sells Cuba chicken, food, cars. So it needs for the U.S. to get serious. If we want to help the Cuban people to be free, if we want the U.S. to have some dignity and stop being used by the Castro regime, we need to strengthen what we're doing. For example, like it was in the Bush years, no travel to Cuba, no remittances, no phone calls. Do not put American citizens at risk. I'll shut up in a second, Gregory. I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, you go.
Do not put American citizens at risk by letting them go to a country that has a history of nationalizing, of stealing, of incarcerating American citizens. So what is the logic on that? We can go to Iran just like that. We can go to North Korea. We can go to Afghanistan. We can go to Iraq. Why can't we go to Cuba? What is different when Osama bin Laden was in a square in Kabul and he said that to America? He said, blah, blah, the tower. What is different that from when Fidel Castro stood up on the Revolution Plaza and says, we're going to sink this island on the sea, and no Marines will survive, we're going to die before. What is different? There is no difference. They are enemies of the United States. The bosses and whoever else doesn't have the fortitude to say no and go to those places. They are soldiers of the regime. They like it or they don't, because they are not saying no. You can be in the army and the Marines. If you go, you are a soldier. It doesn't matter what you think. If you are there, you have the uniform with the flag. You picked a side. Well, sadly, the majority of the Cuban people already picked a side. They might tell you from behind, no, I don't really care. But you care at that moment. So the U.S. need to get strong with Cuba. We need to start feeding that dictatorship. We need to start, if we want to give the tools for the Cuban people to free themselves, because that's the end game, we need to stop sending them money that through them it goes to enrich the banks of the dictatorship. So that's what the U.S. need to do. We need to stop doing the Obama policy that didn't work, and now Biden is going to try to retake. At least it looks like he's talking about. That's not going to do anything but complicate the situation in the U.S. and for the Cuban people. Sorry, go ahead.
That I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and I want to mention one thing. Since 1959, there were 11 presidents of the United States. Each and every one of them has said that they will do something about Cuba. They did nothing. Any of the presidents could have ended the dictatorship in a matter of days if they wanted to. They don't want to. Why? Both Democrat and Republican administration, they did nothing in order to defeat and to eliminate the dictatorship in Cuba. Why? Now, my point is, there are close to 4 million Cuban Americans in the United States. we are a power to reckon with, a power in the sense that we have numbers, but we can do nothing if we do not organize, if we don't unite and exercise our freedom of speech and our liberties here in the United States as American Cubans, to pressure the politicians, the congressmen, the congresswomen, the senators, and even the presidential candidates to do something, to take a strong commitment to do something about Cuba. We must get together and exercise this influence that we as Cuban Americans have in the United States, because we are I would say a minority in a sense that we are only 4 million, but 4 million votes could make a difference between one politician and the other. So we have the obligation and the responsibility to get together and to demand the legislators of our country to take a strong position regarding the dictatorship in Cuba. Not only political promises, not only commentaries, not only meetings, not only all kinds of things, but to actually make strong and convincing statements about what they plan to do for the American people, for the Cuban people, both in Cuba and in the United States for the Cuban exiles. Unless we do that, I don't think the administration is going to look closer to Cuba or is going to be concerned much about the situation in Cuba. We must make our voices heard and our influence as voters in this great country to exercise this privilege and to demand of our politicians, of our representatives in the United States government, to do something concrete about the situation of the dictatorship in Cuba.
Yep.
And a note really quick. We shouldn't do this pressure for the Cuban people. That is a more than welcome side effect. But as Americans, we should do it for America. Because we should not have 90 miles, try to be friends with a gangster that is going to do whatever he wants and is going to put in on his territory whatever enemies there are now and there might be in the future, while they have a smile on your face and behind you. There is no time to react that close. Not just because we say, well, yeah, there is the Cuban people, but there is also half of Africa and half of Asia and half of America. Fair point. Let's not do it for the Cubans. Let's do it for the American people that deserve better than to be at risk with that. It's like having a house full of dynamite, 3 houses from your house. Would you sleep comfortable? That is Cuba.
Yeah,
that is Cuba.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Very good point.
I totally agree. And this is the first video of like this kind of topic on the 26th, which is Saturday. I'm going to be at an event called the World of Nations, and the idea is going to be to do the same thing, but with asking people from all over the world, on this topic. And they're all obviously mostly Americans. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to be live. I'm going to be live from there. We'll see how that goes. But the idea is for you guys to join, to bring more people into debating and discussing this topic. This is a serious topic that I think will benefit Americans, us as Americans, and will, like I said, like Raidel was saying, it's time that we stand up for Americans, that we stand up for ourselves, and we, if we do so, we're going to end up helping the rest of the world, Cuba, Iran, Venezuela, everybody as a whole. But we need to stand up for ourselves first, so, and respect ourselves. So yeah, final thoughts, Patrick.
Well, I would like to make a call to all Americans, not Cuban Americans, but all Americans, and also Cuban Americans who maybe are not too fluent in Spanish, but much more in English, to run the voice, to call to all of their friends, their relatives, to support us in our struggle against the dictatorship in Cuba. And as Rydell has said, it's not only a problem of the Cuban exile or the Cuban people in Cuba, but it's also a problem of America. As you said, we have an enemy, a declared enemy, an enemy who has been for some time on the list of state-sponsored terrorism right at our next door. And we cannot stand down or ignore the fact that if we don't do something about it, things are going to stay as they are. They are not. Things are getting worse for the Cuban people, worse for the exiled, and worse for the American people too. The United States of America, it's its responsibility to protect, first of all, the United States of America, and also all the neighbors in Latin America, Central America and Latin America, because this is an enemy that is not thinking twice before taking steps to undermine, to attack, and to demoralize the United States of America. And we as a nation, the United States of America, we cannot allow that to happen. Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you, Rydell. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jose.
No, final thoughts, Rydell?
No, the main problem that I think we should work is within America. All this stuff outside, that's why we have the biggest weapons in the world. That's why we have the most money, the more prepared army, the best diplomats. However, that means nothing if from within we are divided, and sadly, I see more and more people defending Putin, and why we don't do like, I don't want to go on my soapbox, but just a quick thought. Why are we, many people say now, why are we no more like Europe? And I'll tell you why. If we all of a sudden become Spain or France, then we wouldn't be the US. We would be Spain or France. And we have it so good because we are not Spain or France. The US didn't become what it is by being, the shy. We achieved what we are thanks to what the US have been for the last 150 years. If you change now, you will stop being that and being something else. We have many enemies, real enemies. This is not conspiracy theories. They have nothing to do. This is the reality, and we've seen it. 9/11 and all the whatever, it is out there. And the US is regarded as the benchmark of democracy, of fairness. The moment we start losing that from within the United States, then the world is going to start losing it too, because they don't believe in us anymore. So what are we going to become? I don't know. So then it doesn't matter the aircraft carriers, and it doesn't matter the great armed forces that we have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because American people doesn't want it anymore. I don't know why. So the problem is education. You ask right now on the streets about Ukraine, and everybody's, I don't know. I just know the iPhone 13 is coming out. And you ask the other people, what is Cuba? It's, Cuba, cool, women good, tobacco good. No clue what is going on in the world. And that is a problem that we have in America. Americans think that everything's going to be fine. Somebody else will take care of it. And we love that patriotism of the 80s or the 70s. Even within Vietnam, this stuff didn't happen to the point that we are today. So that's a final call to that, to look within America and read who we are, why, how we got here, before we make a big mistake. That's all.
And with those words, I'll end it. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, the 26th, we're going to be live from World of Nations, and we're going to be doing the second episode of this series topic. So hopefully you join me. Everybody, please share, like, subscribe, invite your friends. Let's get this new channel. It's now all the content is going to be in English. I'll try to subtitle in Spanish for people, but thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the afternoon, and God bless America.